Hello everyone, my name is Anya Hawkins, welcome to my channel. This is a complete video tutorial for one of my designs, the Aprica top. It's this one I'm wearing right now. First I will tell you a little about this design and I will show you how it looks in wear. You will see how I style it, and then we will make one together step by step. Skip ahead using chapters navigation if you're interested only in the actual instructions or some particular part of the instructions. Aprica top is my first summer design. I used for it light fingering weight mercerized cotton yarn. It is smooth, silky to the touch, has a little bit of shine to it, and has this very bright saturated orange color. I was going for this tropical vibe, something that will look good in any weather. And I wanted it to not only look nice, but to be as comfortable as possible as well. So the fit around the chest is loose and relaxed, without any bust darts, to make it more casual, so it would be breezy and pleasant even in really hot and humid weather. But under the bust, the top cinches in, all bottom portion is in ribbon, and in addition to it, the needle size used here is smaller. I find this silhouette quite flattering, especially since the bottom edge hits the waistline. Another fun part is neckline. It is a v-neck, but quite shallow, and Aprica top has a v-neck at the back too. The straps are wide enough to cover bra straps if you're wearing one. And probably my favorite part of this design is how I did armhole ribbon. On the shoulder it's as wide as on the neckline, so it looks symmetrical, but at the underarm goes down to just one row, only enough to prevent any curling of stockinette. And that way the ribbon is not riding up right against your armpit, but sits lower, which I find more comfortable in hot weather. For my second sample I chose another bright and bold color, this cherry red. This is also cotton yarn, but it's structured a little differently, so the fabric behaves a little differently. I got the same gauge, but it is a little more drapey, and I would recommend you to stick to natural fibers if you want your top to be summer weather appropriate. Cotton or silk blends would be the best. I would not risk using linen yarns though. The linen yarn will probably stretch with time too much and your top can lose its shape. This particular version of Aprica top I'm wearing right now, and you will see in the next clip, is the one that I knitted while filming this tutorial. And you are going to see everything I did for every technique. And now let's go ahead and knit it together. Let's knit Aprica top together. We will be working bottom up in pieces. We will cast on with a crochet hook. Keep in mind that you can use different cast on method as long as it's stretchy. Then we will change to bigger needle and will work in stockinette, and up to the armhole shaping, the back and the front panel are the same. Then they are slightly different, and after we will knit both panels, we will graft the shoulders, then we will do the side seams, and in the end we will finish our neckline and armhole openings with 1 by 1 ribbon. So let's start. we will need fingering weight yarn, cotton or silk, or some blend with those fibers. We will need smaller needles for ribbing, bigger needles for stockinette. They both can be straight or can be circular, and we will need circular needles for finishing neckline and armhole openings. Also, if you will use my cast on method, you will need a crochet hook. Also, we will need a tapestry needle for grafting and for weaving in of the ends, and we will need removable stitch markers. I will briefly demonstrate how to cast on with a crochet hook, but if you will have problems or additional questions about this cast on method, I have a tutorial dedicated to it. The link is in your PDF pattern or down in the info box. To begin casting on, first we need to make a slip knot. There are many ways to make one. I do it like that. I tension the yarn between my fingers with the tail end on the thumb, and then I place a crochet hook on top, point it downward, and then bring it up from underneath towards me. That creates this sliding loop of yarn, and then I grab the working yarn and pull it through this loop. This is our slip knot. Adjust it so it's not too loose and not too tight. And now take your smaller needle for ribbing and place it on top of the yarn but under the hook. To give all this stability, hold the tail end of the yarn with your thumb against your needle. This is our working position. Casting on with a crochet hook is a two-step process. Step 1, making a new stitch. To do that, grab the working yarn and pull it through the loop. This is it. This is our new stitch on the needle. Second step is to return to the working position. To do that, hold your newly done stitch with your thumb and then slide everything to the point of the needle and allow the working yarn to jump off of the needle and get to the back again, and slide away from the point. We are again in a working position. So we can make next stitch. Again, step 1, grab the working yarn and pull it through the loop. Step 2, hold your newly done stitch with your thumb, slide to the point and allow the working yarn to jump off the needle and get to the back. I casted on 10 stitches, and now I will show you a trick that I use when I need to cast on a large amount of stitches. For my size, I need to cast on 142 stitches, and the bunch of stitch markers will help me with counting. After every 10 stitches, I just put a stitch marker on the needle. It's quite thin, it's not getting in the way, and I just hold it together with previous stitches and continue casting on. That way I need to count only up to 10, and when my stitch markers will run out, I will know exactly how many stitches I have on the needle. I'm putting my last stitch marker on the needle. It's stitch marker number 14, which means that I need to cast on 2 more stitches for my size. That's 1. And the last stitch with this cast on method is the one that is on a crochet hook itself. Just transfer it to the needle, and that's it. The cast on is done. I don't need to turn the work, I can just start knitting. The stitch markers I will remove while I'm knitting the first row. And in the future, if you're using that cast on method, when you're looking at the right side of the work, this little tail is on the left. So bottom hem is worked in 1 by 1 ribbon. In the right side row, we will knit both selvage stitches. So the row starts with knit 1, it is a selvage stitch, and then knit 1, remove the marker, and purl 1 sequence to the end of the row. The first row is always a little finicky because we don't have the fabric below our needle yet. And at the end of the right side row, the last stitch is a knit stitch, and it will happen naturally. Turn the work, and now row number 2 is on the wrong side, and it will start with a purl stitch, and then we will work in knit 1 purl 1 pattern to the end of the row. And at the end of the wrong side row, there will be 2 purl stitches next to each other. In pattern, I suggest you to knit this ribbon for approximately 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters, but that is only a suggestion. It is a middle ground for different body types, but our bodies are just too different. So what you should do is hold up your knitting to yourself in a way that cast-on edge will hit your natural waistline and see how much you need to knit. You should stop working one by one ribbon once you will get to the point just under your bust. Once the length of the ribbon satisfies you, stop on the wrong side row and change to bigger needle. Just take your bigger needle and start knitting with it your next right side row. Knit your right side rows and purl your wrong side rows. Work like that in stockinette stitch for 3.8 inches or 9.5 centimeters. The plain stockinette portion of the body is done, and up to this point, front panel and the back panel are exactly the same. Now we are going to shape armholes and neck opening. Shaping for the front panel and for the back panel is different, but the techniques are the same, so I will not show them twice. Pay attention to the number of stitches and rows for your size and for your panel, and let's do it. First, we will bind off some stitches at the beginnings of the next 4 rows using traditional bind off method. First row, on the right side, knit first 2 stitches. Then insert left needle from left to right into the first stitch, lift it and pass it over the second stitch and drop it from the needle. 1 stitch is bound off. Knit the next stitch and do the same thing again. Lift the previous stitch, pass it over the second stitch and drop it from the needle. 2 stitches are bound off, and do the same thing until you will bind off as many stitches as you need for your size. After that, just knit to the end of the row. Turn work, and again we need to bind off some stitches. Only this time, since we are on the wrong side row, we will be purling. Purl first 2 stitches and again insert the left needle into first stitch from left to right, lift it and pass it over the second stitch and drop it from the needle. 1 stitch is bound off. Work the next stitch. Same thing. Lift the first stitch and pass it over the second end of the needle, and continue like that until you bind off as many stitches as you need. Then just purl to the end of the row. For next 2 rows we will be binding off stitches again in the same way. Now I finished binding off stitches. Next, the shaping will continue with decreases that will be happening only on the right side rows. Wrong side rows will always be just purled. Decreases are worked like that. Knit 2 stitches, then knit 2 together, decrease. Sometimes it can be difficult to insert a needle into 2 stitches at the same time, so you can take them and stretch them out a little first, and then it will be easier. Knit them together as 1 stitch. And after that, knit until there will be 4 stitches left on the needle. Here's 4 stitches left on the needle, and then SSK decrease. SSKs work like that. Slip first stitch as if to knit, and then slip second stitch as if to knit. Is the SS of the abbreviation, slip slip. Then return both stitches on the left needle, and now K of SSK, knit them together through the back loops. And knit leftover 2 stitches. Do the decreases for as many rows as you need for your size, and next we will start neck shaping. Neck shaping will be happening at the same time as the leftover armhole shaping on the right side row. For some sizes, there is gonna be a decrease at the beginning of the row, just as before. But for some sizes, there would not be one. And again, techniques for the back panel and the front panel are the same, stitch counts are different. I have a marker here reminding me that this is a back panel. After that decrease, if there is one, we need to knit a certain amount of stitches before somewhere in the middle of the panel we will do an SSK decrease. And then knit 2 more stitches. And at that point the front is divided in half. The rest of the stitches you can transfer to a stitch holder or to a length of waste yarn. And continue to work only on those stitches. Or you can leave them on the needle and just turn your work. Stitches that are on hold like that will not be in the way of you working on this part, but they will prevent the detail from laying flat. It will lay flat only when you're about to turn and start wrong side row. Choose an option you like best, or try both of them, one on the front panel and one on the back panel, and you will know what you prefer for some future project. Now, wrong side rows are always just purled. Some right side rows will have knit 2 together decrease at the beginning. Some will not. Pay attention to instructions for your size. At this edge though, on every right side row, there is gonna be the SSK decrease for quite some time. And after all the decreases are done, there is gonna be several rows of just plain stockinette. After that, we need to transfer those stitches to a waste yarn. First, cut the yarn, leave a general tail, more than 4 times width of the shoulder strap, because we will need it for grafting later. And transfer stitches to a waste yarn. Tie the waste yarn for safety. Now the second side. If you have stitches on a needle, just slide them to this point, so your next row will be on the right side. If you have stitches on a waste yarn, transfer them to the needle in a way that your next row will be right side row. This side is a mirror of the one we've just knitted, the same amount of rows and the same amount of decreases. So attach new yarn. On this side, on right side rows, there is always gonna be knit 2 together decrease until we'll have as many decreases as here. And on an armhole side, whenever necessary, there's gonna be an SSK decrease. Again, in the end, there's gonna be several rows of plain stockinette. Cut the yarn, leave a tail for weaving in later, and put these stitches on hold. When you finish both front and back, I recommend you to steam block them to make seaming easier. To steam block, you can use an iron with a steam option. Do not touch the surface of the iron to the fabric, just hold it over it and let the steam saturate the fabric and then shape it with your hands. Leave it to cool off and dry completely. Or if your iron doesn't have a steam setting, use wet cloth. Shape the fabric, place the wet cloth on top and use hot iron on it. Don't press, just touch it to the cloth to release the steam. Leave the panel to cool off and to dry. Now put the shoulder stitches on the needle. I'm using DPNs, but you can use any needle. Now put front and the back together in a way that they are right side out. Find this long tail that we left for grafting and thread it in a tapestry needle. First, we are going to set up for grafting. For that, insert tapestry needle into first stitch on the front needle as if to purl and pull the yarn through. Then insert tapestry needle into first stitch on the back needle as if to knit and pull the yarn through. Now the grafting. First, do the action on a front needle. On a front needle, we always knit off, purl on, which means insert tapestry needle into first stitch as if to knit and let the stitch come off the needle. It was knit off. Then insert tapestry needle into second stitch as if to purl and pull the yarn through. The stitch stays on the needle. It was purl on. On a back needle, we purl off, knit on, which means insert tapestry needle into first stitch as if to purl and let the stitch come off the needle. It was purl off. Then insert tapestry needle into second stitch as if to knit and pull the yarn through. The stitch stays on the needle. It was knit on. Again, on the front needle, knit off, purl on. On the back needle, purl off, knit on. Don't pull the yarn too tightly. Leave your stitches loose like that. We will tighten them later. If you pull the yarn too tight, it will not look good and it will be more difficult to adjust. If you get interrupted or distracted, here's a tip how to know what to do next. If your working yarn is coming out of the back needle, it is time to work on a front needle and do knit off, purl on. But if the working yarn is coming out of the front needle, it is time to work on the back needle and do purl off, knit on. Repeat this grafting sequence until you will have one stitch on the front needle and one on the back. Knit off the stitch from the front needle and purl off from the back. Pull the yarn through. Now you need to fix the tension across the seam. With the tip of your needle, lift up the leg of this first stitch and adjust the tension. Then lift the next leg and pull the slack and go like that from the beginning to the end of the seam until all of it looks nice and uniform. And let's weave in this tail right away. My yarn is quite slippery and I don't want to adjust everything again later. On a purl side, catch those purl bumps and go on the diagonal line. Adjust the fabric periodically to make sure that you are not scrunching it up, and change direction a couple of times. And that should be secure enough. One shoulder is done. Turn the work around and repeat everything we did for the first shoulder. I'm going to show you how to make a side seam using crochet hook. We need the same hook that we used to cast on and yarn. Fold your top that it is wrong side out. We will start from the bottom and go upward. Find the first selvage stitch and insert a hook under both legs of it. Then insert crochet hook under corresponding stitch on another detail. Take your yarn, grab it with your hook and pull it through both panels. Now we have a loop on the hook on one side and tail and working yarn on another. Hold the working yarn and tail together. We will use them both, and that way there is gonna be no end to weave in and the start of the seam will be sturdier. Insert the crochet hook under the second selvage stitch on one panel and then on another. Grab the working yarn together with the tail, pull it through both details and through the loop on your crochet hook. This loop on a hook shouldn't be too loose or too tight. It should have just enough length to get you to the next selvage stitch. Under both legs on one detail, under both legs on another detail. Grab the working yarn and pull it through both details and through the loop on your crochet hook. Continue like that until your tail will run out, and then continue with just working yarn. Let's see it again. Insert a hook under both legs of a selvage stitch on one detail, then on another detail. Grab the working yarn and pull it through both details. You can do it separately like that if you're catching something you shouldn't, and then through the loop on your crochet hook. Check your tension periodically, look at the seam. It is this chain of stitches. Try to stretch it. It shouldn't have too much resistance. The fabric shouldn't be scrunched up or deformed. And also it doesn't have to be precise. Just try to insert a hook in roughly the same row on both details, and when you get to the point where it should be precise, like on transition between ribbon and stockinette, then you can adjust it and even skip a stitch on one of details if you feel that you need to, so the ribbon will end at the same point. And if you need a break, you can just stretch out that stitch and continue working on your seam later. It will not go anywhere. Sometimes it can help if you put stitch markers in strategic places, like where the seam should end, and maybe somewhere along the way, so that your details will not get misaligned. And once you connect the last pair of selvage stitches, do a bit of crochet chain. Just pull the working yarn through the loop on your hook several times in a row and make a chain for about an inch or a couple of centimeters. Cut the yarn and pull the tail through the last loop. Here is how seam looks on one side, and here's how it looks on another. This is how it looks from the inside. Now let's weave in this end. Thread it into tapestry needle, into the selvage stitches that are on the inside, and pull on the yarn so the chain will follow. The seam is done. Turn your work and do the same with the other side. Next step is finishing neck opening. We will start from the top of the shoulder, doesn't matter which one, and we will pick up and knit stitches. Insert needle under the selvage stitch, under both legs. Take your yarn, tension it, and pick up and knit one stitch. Like that. The rate of pickup 3 stitches from every 4 rows, which means that we need to pick up 3 stitches. That was 1, 2, 3, and then skip 1 stitch. Go to the next one. 1, 2, 3, and skip 1. I'm getting to the V point. Here you need to pick up this strand right from the middle of the V point. Help yourself with another needle, because this strand we need to knit twisted. So not like that, but like that. And now insert the marker into that stitch and continue picking up stitches same as before at the same rate until you get to the second V point. And once you get to the second V point, again pick up this strand between stitches, help yourself with the second needle and knit it twisted, and put marker right into this stitch and pick up the rest of the stitches. Once you picked all stitches, distribute them evenly on the needles and place on the needle marker to mark beginning of the round. The number of stitches on the needle should be even, because we will be working one by one ribbing and it is a 2-stitch repeat. You can count stitches, and if it is an odd number, remove 1 stitch or add 1 more in this place. If you cannot be bothered to count stitches, as I am usually, then leave them like that. And if at the end of the first round of ribbing you will have a stitch that interrupts a pattern repeat, just decrease it right in this spot. Knit it together with your last stitch. Now let's work on first round of neckband. Knit 1 stitch and purl 1 stitch until there will be 1 stitch to the stitch with marker in it. This stitch with marker in it is at very bottom at the V point, and here at the bottom we do S2KP decrease. Insert the right needle as if to knit into the second and then first stitch on the needle and slip them, then knit next stitch, and now insert the left needle into those 2 slipped stitches from left to right, lift them and pass them over the knit stitch. Drop them from the needle. Now continue working one by one rib and pay attention here. My last stitch was purl stitch, so I start my one by one rib with a purl stitch. If your last stitch before this S2KP decrease was knit stitch, then you will start with the knit stitch. Continue working one by one rib until you'll get to the second V point. When you get to the next marked stitch, do the same thing. Stop 1 stitch before it and do S2KP decrease. Continue working the ribbon to the end of the round. And just as I mentioned, I didn't count stitches before knitting my first round, and it turns out that I'm 1 stitch off. The number of stitches on my needle is odd, and if I will finish my round with odd number of stitches, my last stitch will be knit stitch and my first stitch is knit stitch. So instead I will decrease the last stitch and I will purl them together, and now I'm in pattern. Round 2, 3, 4 and 5 are the same. Work in one by one rib and make S2KP decrease at the bottom of the points. Marker is left in the first central decrease stitch. There is no point moving it every time we do S2KP decrease, it will only get in the way. What you should know is that S2KP is made on 3 stitches and the central one will end up on top. So when you get close to the marker, to the bottom of the V point, stop 1 stitch short of this column of stitches that will be the central, and then do the S2KP decrease. I knitted 5 rounds, and after 5th round we need to bind off all the stitches using traditional bind off method. This time we will not bind off in a pattern, we will bind off knits and purls as knit stitches. Knit first 2 stitches, then lift first stitch, pass it over the second and off the needle. Knit 1 more stitch and again pass the first stitch over the second. Knit the next stitch, pass the first stitch over the second. Bind off all the stitches that way. Then cut the yarn and pull the tail through this last stitch. So let's weave in this end right away. Thread the tail into tapestry needle and find your first bind off stitch. Then insert the needle under the both legs of this stitch, pull the yarn through, and now insert the needle right into the middle of the last stitch and pull the yarn through. And now let's weave in this tail as usual. First into the column of knit stitches, And then when we get to the main fabric, let's weave it in on the diagonal line, catching those purl bumps. Adjust the fabric to make sure that you're not scrunching up anything, and change direction. Remove the markers, and that's it for the neck binding. To finish up armhole, we will use the same needle as for neckband. Take your yarn and, starting from the side seam, pick up and knit stitches. On this horizontal line, pick up a stitch from every column of stitches. I picked up stitches on the horizontal line, and now on this slanted edge as well as on the vertical edge later, we will pick up again 3 stitches and then skip 1. Pick up 3, skip 1. At the end there is again horizontal edge, pick up a stitch from every column of knit stitches. And place marker to mark beginning of the row. Row number 1. We will shape the armhole band with short rows. Now we will work in 1 by 1 rib, knit 1 and purl 1 for a certain amount of stitches. It's different amount for every size. Then place a marker on the needle and continue ribbing until there is again a certain amount of stitches to beginning of the round marker. Again, the number of stitches is different for each size. Stop knitting and turn work. Row number 2. Make double stitch. For that, slip first stitch to the right needle and pull on the working yarn until your stitch will look like there is 2 stitches on the needle. Place marker in this place and continue working in pattern, meaning purl your purl stitches and knit your knit stitches until you get to the next marker. Remove it and turn work. Row number 3. Again, make double stitch. For it, slip your last stitch to the right needle and pull on the yarn until your stitch looks like there is 2 stitches on the needle. Place marker and continue working in pattern until a certain amount of stitches, different for each size, to the next marker. Stop knitting and turn work. Row number 4. Again, make double stitch. Slip the last stitch to the right needle and pull on the working yarn until your stitch looks like there is 2 stitches on the needle. Then continue working in pattern until there is a certain amount of stitches to the next marker. Turn work, and row number 5 starts again with double stitch. Slip your stitch to the right needle and pull on the yarn until it looks like 2 stitches on the needle, and then continue working in pattern until you get to the beginning of the round marker. And when you encounter on your way a double stitch, just work it together as one stitch. It can be a purl stitch, it can be a knit stitch. In any case, you just work it together as one. I got to the beginning of the round marker and I can remove it because now we need to bind off all the stitches. The same way as we did for the neckband. Bind off all stitches as knit stitches. Knit first 2 stitches and then lift first stitch that you knitted just now and pass it over the second. Drop it from the needle. Work another stitch and lift first one and pass it over the second. And again, when you encounter a double stitch on the needle, just work it together as one stitch. And continue binding off stitches that way until you will end up with one stitch on the needle. Now cut the yarn and pull this tail through this last loop. Thread it into tapestry needle and go under both legs of your first bound off stitch to close this gap, and then go right into the middle of your last bound off stitch. And now let's weave this end on the inside. You can weave it in the fabric or into the selvage stitches. This is the finished result. As you can see, the ribbon is longer on the shoulder and quite short at the underarm. Do the second armhole the same way. And after that you will need to weave in a couple of ends that are left and block finished top to even out the fabric. Well, that was it for this tutorial. I hope it was useful for you. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.